Are they right there? Hold on. Right here. Those what you got? Oh, sorry. I thought they were my modes. I thought they were my 3 powers. These are mono. So when I got bifocals, I have to go like this all the time. So for doing hangouts, I like these. All right. I guess I'm on. All right. Let me run it. Let me send this to him real quick.
Yeah, man.
Let's see. Plus.google.com. Thanks for the water. Share. Okay. Oh my gosh. No. I hit the wrong one. Shucks. Okay. I can't think very fast when I'm under pressure. Okay. Share IQ plus. Paste. Did I already shut it off? What happened? Okay. I need to send him the link. Where is it? Shucks, let's see. Creating one. Okay. Can I talk to you real quick about this rejoiner? Angel joiner? Are you going to extract that too? Did you say you're going to extract the petrol disc or something? Is that on it here? Yeah, we could do that. You think it? Okay, sounds good. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, Dr. Ren, on this area, you wanted to prep list in here, that's fine. Give it a shade. Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah. Sure. Oh, yeah, much better. All right, thank you, sir. All right. Hey, Ty, I gotta run to the bathroom. I'm working. Somebody calling the phone. I'll be right back. Okay.
Sounds good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Right back. I was getting some echoing. I'm gonna go out and come back. I'll be right back.
Oh, sounds good.
Oh, you know what? We've been on live this whole time. We already started. Sorry about that. Hold on. Let me close a few windows here. Okay. Trey Jadlow here. It's the 4th of January 2017. We're starting a new year. And I am here with my new friend, Ty Wilson, whom I met on Facebook. Hey, how are you? I met him a few days ago on Facebook, and ironically, he's kind of my neighbor. I guess you're a St. Joe guy, aren't you?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I used to travel down in your neighborhood quite a bit there. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so we had I'm really bad about preparing. We had a discussion on. Let me turn my volume down just a little bit here. We had a discussion on. Washington Post did an article on Mark Zuckerberg that he's no longer an atheist, and you had chimed in on that, and you said something about the nature of a belief or justifying your belief, and I thought it might be fun if we talked about. I'm trying to open it up here again. We talked about the nature of belief or justifying our perspectives. I know that wasn't directly what you were.
No, it's great. Yeah, no, I mean, because it relates to all of that.
Yeah, but before we begin, would you be able to just tell me a little bit about yourself? So you live in St. Joe, Missouri. Do you have any educational background? Are you, I mean, your perspective, are you an atheist or an agnostic? What, just a few things about your perspective, maybe your personal life, I'd be grateful.
Absolutely. So, yeah, no, I've lived in St. Joe for about 10 years, went to school up here in Western University, met my wife, been married to her for 7 years now. We have 2 kids that are, I always get their ages wrong. But one's almost 2 and one's almost 5. So that's
great.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. So I was a Christian for 17 years, 1993 to about 2010. I considered myself not a Christian for about a couple of years after 2010. Really didn't become outspoken as openly secular as an atheist until about 2012. So that kind of gives you a background as to my perspective. Now, when I became Christian, I was my family was initially involved in Pentecostal churches, heavily involved in Baptist church. But we've been in quite a few churches, from Methodist to Baptist. So, but always, sola scriptura, very, very, very doctrinal focused. I was raised with a very strong Calvinist background, so tulip all the way, all of that sort of thing. So that gives you a little bit of better of an idea that my theology was much more of a Reformed theology.
In a Pentecostal church.
That's where we started. So my family's journey really was from here we are at the Pentecostal church. This is kind of what we know, right? And journeying to a much more biblical-based Christianity. So they went from Pentecostal to Baptist. From Baptist, they went to a Reformed Presbyterian type of church. And so where my family is at now is a Reformed Calvinist church. So yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing about my family journey and the journey that I was a part of too. Because it was, when you talk about Pentecostal, you don't necessarily talk about exegesis. You don't necessarily talk about doctrine. So it was an interesting transition for sure.
Okay, so tell me, if you would you tell me what caused you to leave the faith?
I mean, that's a long story, Trey. Like many people, it didn't happen overnight by any means. atheist. It wasn't a, hey, now I don't believe. It was a long and torturous journey of, I want to believe this. I think this is true for me on an emotional level. And that kind of relates to my reaction to your post here. When I was leaving Christianity, everything emotionally told me, no, you need to stay. This is part of who you are. This belief is bigger than truth, if that makes sense. And so it's a long. There wasn't one thing, I guess, that made me say, hey, I'm no longer a Christian. There was a point in time in the year 2010 where I was like, I am no longer. For me to go to church, for me to call myself a Christian would be hypocritical. And so that's when I kind of moved away from Christianity. But there was a point later than that where I said, I want to only believe true things. And that's when I came to consider myself an atheist, to where I say, I don't necessarily know that I believe in a God. I don't disbelieve in him, but I don't believe in him. I'm an agnostic atheist at that point. Does that give you some background?
Yeah. So you watched the movie Zeitgeist and learned that there was no God?
No, I've seen that movie, actually.
What's that?
It's funny because I never read anything Dawkins. I never read anything Hitchens. I have a huge background in biblical studies. So when I was 14, I was like, I'm a good communicator. I can do this. My spiritual gift is a gift of gab. And so I'm going to be a leader in the church. So I dove into Greek. I dove into Hebrew, and really wanted to perfect my personal exegesis. Read so many commentaries back and forth, and I still do. I love that. So really, that deep dive into what Christianity was, what the Bible was, made me realize that, number one, I don't agree with this message at its core. And number two, I don't think that it's true. So that's really, yeah, I know it's a lot of people, in my opinion, this kind of relates back to your post, change religions or become religious for wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
With atheists. A lot of atheists become an atheist for bad reasons. So that is why I kind of spoke up on this one here, because I don't think, in my opinion, and see, I've watched a lot of your videos, right? You're a deep thinker, and you understand what the nature of reality and truth is. So I don't understand why this, to you, would be a good argument for the reality of a religion.
Okay. Well, so first of all, but you said you had studied a lot in commentaries. You know a lot about the Bible. Can you tell me what the eighth commandment is?
Oh my gosh, man. No, not off the top of my head.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so
but that doesn't discredit me, Trey. Come on, you know that.
10th commandment is elementary Christianity. I mean the 10 commandments. I mean, you don't know that.
Sure. There's 613 Levitical commandments, however. So I do know that. A lot of those are, have to do with purification, have to do with food, and all those different sorts of things. I know what jazz, but to say, do you know what it is? That's not really fair.
Yeah, okay, whatever. No, I think it's silly. I don't think you know what you're talking about. I think you're bloviating right now. You don't really know that much, but you're trying to act like you were a big, knowledgeable Christian. But let's move on. So for you, how would you justify your existence as an atheist?
No, I think we need to dive into this here on the post, because tell you what, I got to get back to work soon.
Okay.
I can address that really quickly though. If you can explain to me what you mean by that.
Well, did you make yourself before you existed?
Did I make myself before I existed?
You said you watched some of my videos, and I almost I had the same message for almost all my videos.
Oh, I know where you're going. I just want you to be very clear here. Did I make myself? Of course not. Of course not. So am I contingent upon something? Yeah, absolutely. Do I know that the entire universe is contingent upon something? I don't know that for a fact. Do you?
Is the universe changing?
It depends on what you mean by changing. On a whole, I don't necessarily know that that's true.
It doesn't really matter if it's a whole. If it's a whole conglomeration of changes, the conglomeration of themselves doesn't make them eternal.
Well, then, I mean, here we get into the A theory and B theory of time. You know, if we look at the universe as a whole, no, it's not really changing. If we look at it from our perspective, well, sure, it changes every moment. You know what I mean?
No, because it's either the universe has change or it does not have change. And if it does not have change, then I would challenge you to go, and I always do this, go and walk in front of a speeding truck and test that hypothesis.
Right. No, of course it has change that we experience. But, you know, I think when we look at time as a component of that, right, when we look at it with the B theory of time, we're talking about a block, a single unit that doesn't have change there. So that's where I'm not really swayed by the contingency argument that you feel is so self-evident.
Okay, so if you're saying that there is no change, then you've got to make a differentiation in the ontologies you're talking about. So you're saying the universe changes and the universe doesn't change at the same time in the same relationship. I don't think you're saying that, right?
No, so you're talking about the law of non-contradiction there. But I think we're also diving into really semantic territory where these words are just, you know, things that we've come to describe our relationship to reality, which may not be anything ultimate, right? I mean, what I'm saying is that the words we use are limited by our limited function in this reality. So while I can imagine the universe as a single block in a B theory of time, that doesn't make any damn sense to me, if that makes sense.
Well, if you're just going to say that change is an illusion, you need to have a hypothesis, or you need to have a statement that you can be. Let me say this: inconsistency is the sign of a failed argument. Okay, and if you're going to say that,
I see what you're saying, sure.
And so you can't special plead and say, "Who knows? Maybe it doesn't change, and all that we see is an illusion." But I'm not willing to live that way. That's not a compelling argument.
Oh, I see what you mean. Sure. And of course, I mean but it is a bit of a too coquet to say I'm not willing to live that way. Of course not. I have to live as if my reality is real, right?
That's right.
I have to go to the bathroom in 10 minutes.
That's right. Exactly.
Those are pressing physical things. But I can also say that I understand that, well, I don't understand, to be honest. I don't understand how the nature of time isn't linear, because that's how I experience it.
That's right.
But I can understand that there is a overarching theory that might explain that. I mean, to act like I understand that, no, I don't.
Okay.
But yeah. So.
Okay, so you're violating the principle of parsimony. In other words, we got to keep our arguments as simple as possible. We can't add extras in there that kind of helps us as an escape hatch, but we've got to deal with only what we understand.
But isn't that exactly what belief in a deity is kind of an escape hatch there?
No. You cannot have contingent existence without a se existence. It's modus ponens. It's a necessary corollary. If I exist and if I'm contingent, there must be something self-existent that gives me my ontology. Otherwise, I would not exist.
But I think that's I think that, you know, in and of itself isn't necessary. I mean, you're stating that that's the case, but why? Can you demonstrate that that's the case?
I just did. Something cannot exist and not exist at the same time in the same relationship. If something contingent exists, something necessary must exist as well, or self-existent.
That would make sense if we had complete knowledge of what reality is like and time, right?
You're going to parsimony again. It's Occam's razor.
Come on, man. I mean, when you talk about Occam's razor, we can talk about supernatural. We can talk about the supernatural as well and cut out that explanation entirely, right?
No, is nature contingent?
Is nature contingent? Oh, that's tough, man. That's kind of work. Because what do you define as nature? Is that the entirety of reality? Is that the universe? What's nature?
Well, I don't know. You use the term. You tell me what you mean.
Okay, so if we say that nature, which is the entirety of reality, to say that it's contingent, I don't know that.
Well, yes, you do, because it's changing. That which is contingent is necessarily evidenced by change or with change.
And I think we're going back to, is change what we experience, or is change an actual thing that is a part of reality? And that goes back to the B theory of time. Yeah, so I understand where you're going, and believe me, I've listened to your argument over and over again. and I think it's a very good one, but it doesn't do much to. It seems a little bit. It seems a little bit like a word game trick. It seems a little bit like you're saying you're using these words and their relation to reality to kind of make it seem like X is true, that the God hypothesis is true. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. Well, if we could, let's go on to your post here, the main topic here. And I appreciate, again, Trey, that we could do this. I think it's wonderful that you have this medium and you do this with atheists. And, but so you felt like, you said, funny how babies tend to change perspectives. Do you feel like this is a good argument for the reality of Christianity or any religion?
Particularly the particular argument that I use is merely an argument for God. It's not the God of Christianity, but it begins there. Obviously, God is so much more than the God of ultimate reality, but he certainly is no less either.
No. So what I was asking is, do you feel that your argument, funny how babies tend to change perspectives?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about my argument for the existence of God.
No, I'm sorry. I was switching gears here.
Oh, well, I think that it was more merely an existential statement that I made. It's funny. I see this a lot. Atheists, two things generally when people, I was just telling somebody the other day, there are two reasons that I have found that people are atheists. It's number one, something horrific has happened in their lives that has caused them to be angry at God, or they're living in sin and they don't want the moral accountability that comes with the idea of there being a God. So they just say, there is no God. And I've seen it more than once I'm thinking one particular example, a guy was an atheist and then he gets married and suddenly he softens.
So let me ask you this, Trey. Have you talked to many atheists about why they have left religion?
Well, yeah, I ask every one of them that's part of my shtick.
So have you read McKenna's recent article about reasons people give for leaving religions?
People may give all kinds of. Let me say this: there are people that leave Christianity again. I'm specifically talking about the hardened atheists, but there are people that have asked questions and have gotten bad answers. But those guys that I talk to, though, for example, Ty, I've never received a valid rebuttal to this argument, not one, and yet people still persist.
I think you have.
Oh, okay. What was it? Please tell me.
I think you have by Dave S. quite a few times, and I don't think that you addressed
by Dave S.
Dave S. Yeah.
You're kidding.
Not at all.
Okay, what was his argument? I mean, he was a smart guy, but he lost that statement. People can look it up, Dave S. and Trey Jadlow, or look on my Facebook page or my YouTube page. Okay. What was his argument that was so compelling?
Just that you were using special pleading for your argument.
Which one? What was that special pleading?
Well, I'd have to go back and watch the video, Trey. My point is that I don't think that that's 100% true that you're saying. And I understand that you feel that way.
Well, tell me what I did wrong. Tell me where I lost the argument. It completely slipped by my mind. I tried to get him to engage again, and he won't. But tell me what he did exactly. If in fact he rebutted my argument, what did he do? You said that he did.
One of the things that you brought up was, arguing for a B theory of time. Was similar to saying I've got little green men under my desk, but they don't like bugs, right?
That's exactly right. That's parsimony. It's special pleading.
So, but my thing is that completely contradicts. No, it's completely your position to say, well, there is a God, but you can't see him. You can't directly experience him. There's also a supernatural. You can't directly experience it, but it's there. You see what I'm saying? Like that.
I want you to think about that for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
If something is omniscient, omnipresent, in other words, ase, can it be corporeally defined ad intra? I mean, as it is in and of itself, not.
How is that not special pleading there in and of itself, Trey? To say, well, no, you don't get it. This thing has these attributes, therefore it cannot be corporeal.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying?
Corporeality is limited. Do you agree with that? It's contingent.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know that limited is the proper word to use.
Well, it can only be at one place at one time, can it not? It's limited by space.
One place at once. Well, at least on this scale, maybe not on a quantum scale. But no, absolutely. You know, in our middle world that we experience, yeah, I understand what you're saying. But what I'm saying is, it seems like special pleading, Trey, to say, and I'm so sorry, we've gotten off on a tangent, and I don't want to be combative at all with you. I enjoy these conversations. But it seems to me that it's a special pleading to say, no, you don't get it. Something that is ase, something that is, you know, omniscient and omnipresent. It can't be corporeal. Well, of course not.
Okay,
you don't just get to posit that, right? Why do you get to posit that?
Because if in fact it is ase, it cannot be ad intra. Now that doesn't mean it cannot participate, say for example in the incarnation, but it cannot ad intra be corporeal. Otherwise, it would be contingent by definition.
Sure,
it's logic. It's just simple logic.
No, you're absolutely right. If that was the case, but there's the if that's there, right? So you're saying if there is a being that, if I agree.
If you exist, then he exists.
No, see, I don't agree.
Okay. Demonstrate the flaw in the argument.
Why must I'm sorry. Why must there be something immaterial, omnipotent, omniscient for me to exist?
You know, you have this way of speaking that you sound like a Presbyterian Jimmy Swaggart. The way you
I'll take that as a compliment, Trey. I'll take that as a compliment. It tells you a little bit about my background.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just teasing you, but it's funny. You're not
far off. So hey, no, I like this tack, but let's, if we can we switch gears a little bit to the Facebook post? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So you were saying that you were looking at this as sort of an existential statement. And in your experience, there's two reasons that people have come to be atheists. They're either, correct me if I'm wrong, something bad happened to them that's made them angry at God, or they're living in some secret sin and therefore don't want to be answerable to a deity.
Yes.
To God. Okay. So let me first of all tell you the flaw in that argument for me. Neither of those things happened to me. Nothing bad happened to me, and I'm not living in a secret sin. And when I had questions about
or an open sin, in other words, you don't want to be accountable for your life.
So even under Christianity, I have so many. There are so many things that some of my friends do that I would never consider. I mean, I won't even, me and my wife, we don't even watch R-rated movies. We just don't. We both have that kind of, we're just not going to watch R-rated movies. We don't want our kids to be around.
Is your wife a Christian?
No, she's not.
She's an atheist?
She's an atheist as well.
So she's a hardcore.
She doesn't believe in a God.
Okay, all right.
And that's my position too. So I don't really know what you mean by hard. No, I think I do. I think I know what you mean by hardcore. I don't know that
look for Trey Jadlow and try to have an engagement with him.
I followed you, Trey, because you're interesting. And in fact, I've recommended you to some of my Christian friends who are presuppositionalists. So who knows what they're going to do? But I don't want to fight you. I think you're an interesting guy, and your arguments are are interesting. I almost said compelling, but I didn't want to do that slip of the tongue. But so that's why that are, you know, when you say that to me, I'm like, boy, that doesn't sound like me at all. So what do you say when somebody like me says, hey, I just don't believe in a God, and there's nothing that's negative that happened in the past, and nothing that, say, I mean, you may believe this, but say that there's nothing that is a sin, that whether secret or open, you may still believe that, but grant me that for argument. What would you say that, how would you consider me in that point?
Well, here's my evidence that you are suppressing the truth and unrighteousness.
Okay.
I give you an argument. You cannot answer it, and yet you refuse my argument. Because the actual belief, if you are to believe my perspective, there is a holy God, and you are accountable for your sin.
Oh, I'm down with that. If that's the case, I'm down with that. I want to believe true things, Trey. But your argument isn't compelling to make me think that that's the case. The argument seems to be steeped into, well, even if your argument was correct, even if I were to grant you all the premises and the conclusion, why would it be Christianity?
Well, I've got the Christian worldview is the only religion I've ever seen that has compelling arguments to all the questions that are to make up a worldview. I mean, every worldview is going to have a creation, fall, and redemption. Even the evolutionary, the atheist view, you are all going to have that.
Well, can you explain that for me on the
sure.
The
Darwinian evolution. I mean, you see an evolution of humanity, and we see death and destruction within this created order, or this existing order, whatever it is, and it's changing, and mankind is evolving toward this goal of the sanctity of existence. And so the utopia,
that's not how evolution works at all. Evolution doesn't care about a goal. You know what I mean?
So you do not rejoice when you see life extended because of what you call evolution?
When I see life extended, evolution doesn't care about how long you live. The only reason that
you hold to evolution, and this is one of the problems too with your perspective. You say that there's value, but it's not really value. It's just an imagination you have, something in your mind. But it's not really true.
I may have missed you there. I hold to evolution. I see value. I don't see that evolution has any value.
Okay, you're saying that which gave rise to your value has no value. Do you agree with that?
That which gave rise to my value has no value.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have value in a sort of teleological sense. Whatever value.
Really? Did you value to make that statement to me just then?
Did I what now?
Did you value to make that statement just then?
I value to make that statement to you. I thought it. I don't know what you mean.
You thought it would be a good thing, that it would promote existence, right?
Sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my existence was predicated on value. My existence cannot be predicated on value, and I could bring value to my own statements, right? Because I'm a conscious being.
Okay, so where does that come from?
Where does what come from?
Value.
Value is something that value is a term. This is one of the things you do, Trey. Value is a linguistic qualifier, right? That's all that is. It's not a platonic semantic, end all be all out there.
But do people really value in this world?
Oh, sure. Do you think people do that incorrectly sometimes?
Incorrectly? Is there a standard?
Well, if you look at, for example, if you hold a standard of well-being,
right,
and I value heroin. So
do you assume the standard of the sanctity of existence?
Let me finish it, Trey. If I hold a standard of well-being, this is my standard that I have, but I value heroin, then that is an incorrect value. Would you agree in that instance?
Yeah, but that's not the question. The question is, why do you value existence? That's the question.
Oh, because I'm programmed to survive.
And so you have been determined to want to survive, right?
Oh, to some extent, yeah.
Okay, who determined it?
I think,
Determination is something a function of personhood.
Oh, I disagree, absolutely.
Oh, no, yeah, because it's inconvenient.
No, I don't see why that would have to be the case. Trey.
So unintentionality can intend intentionality.
You demonstrate why determinism has to be a subject to a person.
You know what, can you hold just a second? Can I put you on hold for just a second?
No problem.
Okay, Tom, sorry, I'm back here.
Oh, cool.
Now, how much time do you have? I only got about 10 or 12 minutes left. I need to
Cool.
Need to go.
Yeah, me too. So, man, I'm sorry. This has been a lot of fun. Let's talk about the Facebook post. What was your intent? I guess I'll let you just with it.
Well, I thought it was interesting to see the evolution of Mark Zuckerberg. There's something about children. You said you have 2 kids, is that right?
Yeah.
Were you with your wife when you had the baby?
Oh, absolutely.
When you saw that child come out,
yeah,
I have 6 children, so
oh, great, congrats. Yeah.
There is nothing as glorious and as contemplative as that, to see the other human being coming out, and it's like, let me say this, Ty, there's nothing as magnificent in your life as your 2 little children. Would that be right? Maybe except for your wife. Yeah. So what we do is we see these things as we grow older. When we're young, we know it all, and then our parents are stupid, and then we become parents, and we suddenly see, oh, my parents weren't all that stupid. And as you live life, you start seeing things and understanding things that change your perspective. And I thought it was a very appropriate picture that the Washington Post put up there of him holding his little girl with his wife. And there's just something that screams at you the glory of God when you see the magnificence of humanity, the very crown of all creation. And so I just, that's why I said I thought it was kind of funny seeing people, when people have babies. I had a friend, or an acquaintance of mine I know, who was really, he's the same age as me, I'm 50. This was 7 years ago or something. And he was married and they had no children. He didn't really want to have any children. And he had, he was into model airplanes and blah, 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 and we have a professional relationship, so we talk every now and stuff like that. And he has this child, and it's like the entire world changed, because when you don't have kids, you don't want them. But once you have kids, generally speaking, once you have kids, it's like, it's difficult. Okay, I'll grant you that. But it is so glorious. I mean, kids are so awesome. And so when you have that, it just kind of changes your perspective, I guess, and oftentimes helps you to think about things of long-term import. One thing I've noticed about atheists, they all live like this. They're pleasure seekers. They're sensual. All they're worried about is the next pleasure that they can get.
Oh man!
I'm not saying all of that. I'm not making a blank statement. I'm saying, Ty, I've been hanging out with this community for 6 or 7 years, almost on a daily basis. I interact with atheists. Let me tell you 3 things about atheists. 3 things. Number 1, they're not very circumspect in their perspective, and they're ignorant. Right? They think they're really smart. They're not that smart. And I'm talking about things like metaphysics, thinking about big picture things. Okay, number 2, they're arrogant. Some of the most arrogant people I know are atheists. Number 3, they're filthy human beings. This is one of the reasons why I left G+. I said enough. So many liars. They are so enamored with wieners and orifices. Everything is about sex, and it's just.
I saw a post on David Brahe's post the other day.
Who?
David Brahe.
Bray. It's Bray.
Okay, cool. About the Oh, I don't even know what it was. It
The
was a video
vagina
game.
game.
Yeah,
Great
it was a video
example.
game controlled by pelvic muscles. Yeah.
And he was trying to make it. Oh my! It was just embarrassing.
Well, but
This is a very. He also had one. This is what made me think. He also had one a few months ago on a wall of dildos, and he just thought that was so cute. And it's just like, you guys are so sophomoric, and so the life, everything is just like, what can I do for the next pleasure? And it's like, I don't. In G plus, I'm like, I don't want what you people have. You may. And I've asked several of my atheists in Hangout, I said, what do you have to offer me? And always the answer is, well, nothing. And I go, that's right. I want to live a life of excellence. I want on my tombstone to have that word integrity. You know, not if not necessarily emblazoned, that people look at and think about Trey Jadlow, that he was a man of integrity. And atheism has nothing. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing really beautiful either. They couldn't care about. They're all about truth, but beauty and goodness are unimportant to them. And that's why I think it's why new atheism is suffering its demise now. People are getting sick of Richard Dawkins and his acerbic, ugly attitude. He cares nothing about sensitivity, about charity, about beauty, about integrity. It's just all about stupid Christians and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay. And even his own people, you know that people don't like Richard Dawkins anymore. Generally speaking, they just don't. Even the atheists don't like him.
Well, no, this is info that I didn't know about you, Trey, and I'm glad you shared that with me. What do you've said atheist quite a bit in atheism. What do you define? What is that definition to you? What does that mean?
Well, atheism is just a lack of belief in God, and I'm particularly speaking to the passionate. I call them the new atheists, and who gets it? Tyler gets really mad when I use that word and says it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, they're the people that are the most acerbic, the people that are out there trying to evangelize the world for their perspective. They're not nearly as impressive. I always say, get rid of some of those mirrors in your house, and you might have a more average view of yourself, and you might be a little more desirable and go a little farther. They're always in love with themselves, think they're the greatest things, on the earth. That's why I say there's just arrogance about them that's sad, and they're ignorant. You talk about deep things. We're living in an age that demeans metaphysics, thinking about philosophical things, about ultimate things like origins. People are very uncurious, anything to go beyond natural selection. Meaning, they don't care about that. Morality, well, I don't know anything about that. Just honor everybody. Why is that? Well, that's just the way we are. Destiny, what happens when that? Well, I'll just die when I'm done. Yet they're all worried about saving the world. It's incoherent. It's an incoherent worldview.
So you mentioned morality there, which really stands out to me quite a bit. I count myself as a secular humanist. Atheism is what it is, right? It is just like believing in God. From a positive label standpoint, I count myself as a secular humanist. What, as far as the morality of secular humanism, what are your thoughts there?
I think it's stupid. They say that humanity is super, super duper special, and we need to cram our morality of the sanctity of existence down everybody's throat. And you ask a secular humanist, why is that so? And you go, well, that's just the way we are. So we have intrinsic value? Well, no. I just assign it. And if you're just assigning it and it's not true, you're deluding yourself. The very thing you're saying about religionists who are making up a crutch to help them get through life, that's exactly what the secular humanists do, not the Christians. Christians have a reason for their perspective. Secular humanism is the stupidest of all perspectives. It is. It's just dumb.
Do you think that there are believers, Christians, who believe in Christianity for the wrong reasons? Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
Because there are people who are true Christians who have very bad reasons for being Christians. And I would say that's why I'm a big fan of R.C. Sproul. He says we're living in a theological dark age and a philosophical dark age right now. I agree with that.
And I would agree to some extent from my perspective. Why do you think that is?
Well, okay, so that's kind of a long question.
I know, right? Sorry.
In church history, you've always had this fight between the rationalists and the obscurantists, or the fideists, or the faithers, you know, and go back and forth. And even Augustine, who is the greatest theologian of the first millennia, would be described as a obscurantist when it comes to faith. Not that he wasn't irrational, because he was terribly so, but I was listening to the teaching, and he was described in that way. I was kind of surprised by that. But you have this back and forth all the time. So, for example, I would deem
wasn't it Augustine that said "te creo de absurdum"? Is that correct?
I believe because it's absurd. I don't think that was him. I can't remember who it was though. But anyway, so let me go on. So we've got this history of a challenge between it, and then, and for example, in the High Middle Ages, you had scholasticism, which was very pedantic. It was very rational, and it was very Aristotelian, because you know Aquinas. All right, so Augustine synthesized Platonic thought with Christianity, and Aquinas synthesized Aristotelian thought with Christianity. And so you had these during the High Middle Ages. Aquinas came up with these syntheses with Christianity, and actually were very helpful. Many of the matrices that Aristotle came up with are actually helpful for codifying Christianity. But then in the late Middle Ages, the scholastics, who were disciples of Aquinas, were like on steroids with Aristotle. And so they came up with this thing that said they had all these paradigms which weren't necessarily biblical. And so ironically, William of Ockham came up with this idea where we get Occam's razor. William said, listen, you guys are too much into philosophy, not enough into theology or the Bible and what you came. And he said they had all these paradigms. They were almost worshiping the paradigms, or treating them as if they were in stone, but they couldn't necessarily prove them. So Occam said there was this principle called relationality that they held to ontologically, and it was part of their theology. And Occam says you can't prove relationality, and there are some other things that Aristotle said, and he said, so what you got to do is keep your arguments simple. And that's where Occam's razor comes from. You cannot make an argument more difficult without justifying that argument, or that whatever that premise that you're saying there. And so Occam swung away from the scholastic perspective, and he's what you call a nominalist. And he basically said that we know things what they are just because we name them. And Luther, ironically, was trained in the Occamist tradition. And so the Occamists are saying, listen, we need to get back to the scriptures and get away from this theology. So there was actually an unhealthy swing in the other direction. And you will see this idea of sola scriptura actually having its roots in many ways in this Occamist tradition of nominalism. But then a few generations later, there was a swinging back, and there was an acceptance. I'm a 1689 Baptist. I follow the Second London Baptist Confession of Faith, and the framers of our Constitution, of our confession, were Reformed scholastics. So there came a back. Also during the late Middle Ages, the humanists and the scholastics were fighting too. The humanists, like Erasmus was a humanist, and actually Calvin was in the humanist tradition. They hated the scholastics because the scholastics were so egg-headed, and the humanists were more concerned about language. They were more concerned about persuasion. The scholastics are more concerned about just getting the answer right. They don't care if it's eloquent or anything like that. Humanists are more about the beauty. And when you hear humanists, don't think of humanists as it is today. It's really nothing of what we have for today. But anyway, so you saw the swinging from scholasticism to humanism, and to away from analytics in thinking. And so then a few generations later, you had a recapturing in the 17th century of the scholastic tradition. And so you had reformers who were scholastics, and that's how my confession is written. And it's wonderful metaphysics and thinking. It's really good in that. Then, though, you had the Enlightenment with Immanuel Kant, who came and around the time of our revolution, and he wrote the Critique of Pure Reason. And he basically said that all we have access to are those things that we can experience with our senses. And so he said, so there are three things that we cannot experience with our senses, therefore we cannot verify them, which is God, which is the self, and the essences of thing, which is Ding an sich, those three things, the essence of the cabinet, we can't experience it, we don't know what it is or whatever, and we have ourself, we can't verify God. And he goes, so we can't know that there's a God. And pretty much everybody
was we should at least believe it.
I'm sorry.
He said we can't verify it, but we should live as if we can.
Well, that was, yeah. So he wrote the Critique of Pure Reason, saying that we can't verify God, but then he had the Critique of Practical Reason, where he came along and said, we can't prove God, but you know what? If there's no God, everything falls apart. So we got to believe in him so we can have some kind of moral code. So yeah, practically speaking, he says we must affirm that there's a God, but not because you can actually prove it. Everybody fell dead at Kant's feet, not me. And that's what I plan on recapturing. And many of the theologians, even of that day, they gave it up and they said, okay, yeah, you can have metaphysics. That's fine, just as long as we can have our Bibles, and we'll entrench in our Bibles. And so since Kant, you've seen this moving away. And that's where, I don't know if you're familiar with Francis Schaeffer, but he talked about having an upper story and a lower story of reality. And he's,
yeah.
Okay. And so the upper story represents your morals, your beliefs, your religion. And the lower story is that concrete reality, that which we can verify. Okay. And Francis Schaeffer's whole idea was to try to bring these down into the same level of because I'm sorry,
to kind of bend the secular.
Yeah, I mean that's how our society is. Totally, that's how it is, and that's why I was kind of reacting to your statement, because, and that's what I want to talk about beliefs, that people will oftentimes talk, well, almost always in the secular community, they talk about religious conviction as just merely personal beliefs, like I like vanilla ice cream, and that's where your religion is just like that. But what Francis Schaeffer was saying, what I'm saying too, and Dr. Sproul is saying, if God exists, it's not a matter of preference. He would call it true truth. In other words, it's not a truth that is something that you just like it's true that I like, I like to look out of tall buildings or something. It is true. It's not a preference. It's a reality. God either is or he is not. And my idea is, certainly we cannot measure God in an empirical sense, apart from his human nature, 2,000 years ago, but we can know him certainly as much as we can know anything rationally. And that's the whole point. People dropped Aquinas. They ran away from him because they thought they didn't really care, because they wanted to get away from all the concreteness of Aquinas, because they said, oh, it's too heady. We don't have any room for faith. Let's go with this fideism. And so since the Enlightenment, we have really been plagued by a fideism, and it's affected the church. And so the church, that's why I'm so against presuppositionalism. They are slaves to Immanuel Kant, and they don't even know it. Now, of course, they know. Van Til knew Kant was an opponent to him very much, but I think unwittingly they have fallen into the trap of to the philosophy of Kant, which cannot be verified. And we're seeing a resurgence of Aquinas' thinking, I think, and it's a wonderful thing, I think. And metaphysics is like nasty words these days. Thinking about philosophy, Richard Dawkins knows nothing of philosophy, and we're seeing a resurgence even in the skeptical community. People are beginning to embrace philosophy and thinking about these things. And from my perspective, I think it's a wonderful thing. We're always going like this and coming to new balances, in reality, and we're swinging back that way, which is a good thing. And I think it's good for Christianity as well.
So 1 second here, my battery might die any moment, but I wanted to ask you. So from the standpoint of, hey, my perspective has changed. I just had a child, and for me, it was actually the opposite. When I had my first son, I was like, wow, I need to be more vocal about my disbelief. About the fact
Why? Well, you said you need to. Is there some kind of goal in mind there?
Yeah, absolutely.
What?
Yeah.
What is the goal?
My own personal goals. Sure.
Which is what?
Oh, to live the best life possible.
So to promote the sanctity of existence?
No. What?
What is the best life possible then? To die?
Eventually, sure.
No, you want to make life go as long as it can, right? And not just to live, but to live fully, right?
But yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily long as possible. I think life extension in and of itself isn't.
No, I said, you didn't hear me.
Sorry,
I said you want to live longer and you want it to be full. In other words,
I think, Trey, let me back up. Quality adjusted life years is the term that I use there. So I don't necessarily care how long as much as I care about the quality, and I care about sort of the situation that I leave my family in when I die.
Right. You want to promote the sanctity of existence as much as you can.
No, but see when you say it like that, that has some implications deeper than what I'm doing. All I care about is what I can see in this physical realm, right? I don't necessarily feel that there's some metaphysics in on top of that. And like I said, my battery's about to die, and I need to go anyway pretty soon.
Okay.
But I'll go as long as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but my point. Oh shit. Oh
Get
man.
done. Are you done?
So I can't see anymore.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and close it out, because your battery's going to go, and I'd like to say goodbye to you. And are you there? I think you just dropped out, unfortunately. Okay, well, that is the end of this. Ty, you'll probably watch us later. It's very nice to meet you. Thank you for the kind interaction. It was enjoyable, and hopefully we can interact in the future. And I hope you all enjoyed this little discussion, and hopefully we'll have another one soon. So everybody have a great day. We'll see you.